My coach wants my pee to be crystal clear. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Road to the Meat. I am joined, as always, by Dom DG. This is episode number 11. Next week, it'll be 3 months worth of episodes. That's pretty crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the meat draws ever closer. Now that we both have dates set in, it's starting to get, I mean, it's official, but it's starting to we're like counting down the days and looking at the calendar, looking forward to stuff. And, this is going to be interesting, especially for Dom because of his training this week. I'll let him talk about that in just a second. But reminder of how many days out we are. I am currently 58 days out, since I anticipate that I'll be competing on December 5th because the meet is 2 days. It's the 4th and the 5th. And because I'm the heavier weight class, I anticipate that I will be on the second day. So I'm going to just treat that as such. Dom, how many days out are you?
I'm 43 days out.
43. Good God, man.
Coming down to the wire.
I can't believe you're in the 40s, man. I mean, I knew that, but at the same time, it was it is coming down to the wire. That is 6 weeks out. Mm-hmm. So, wow, that's crazy. That kind of hit me damn, that is true. You are 6 weeks out. So, this is a pretty important transition period for you right now because obviously this was a very fun week for you, I'm sure, because this was the last day, or not last week, of your training block before a deload. Right. And you know what, why don't you just kind of talk about that, kind of what's been going on? How was your lifts this week? How do they move? How are you feeling? And what does your deload anticipate? Because last time you did a deload, you hit some pretty significant PRs, despite being at a reduced intensity or a reduced volume, I guess, all around. Do you have any idea? Well, first talk about this week, and then you can kind of give us a little bit of information about your deload and what's going to consist of this time around.
Yeah. So I start off the week doing pause squats, and I did 315 pounds for 3. And I mean, I started off the block doing 315 pounds for 3 as my regular squat, not even my pause squat. So it is cool to at the end of the block be doing that as a pause. And I think it looked really clean. I also did, on that same day, I did 230 pounds on bench for 2. I didn't actually get a clip of that one, but it moved pretty well. Which, I mean, honestly, my shoulder has been a little bit achy here and there. I've been working through it. But the last training session of bench I did, it felt really good. And I think I'm starting to crack the code on what I need to do to keep my shoulder in check. Just a lot more warm-ups before lifting. Obviously you need to warm up, but I think I need to take it to a whole nother level. And I've been doing warm-ups intra-workout, almost some shoulder rehab type things in the workout to keep it, loose. But yeah, after squat and bench at the beginning of the week, I did deadlifts, and I hit 415 pounds for 3. Previously, on the week before that, I did 2, which was supposed to be for 3, but I just couldn't get it. I thought I probably could have gotten it, but in my head, I felt like I was overshooting the RPE, so I just cut it short. So this week, I'm okay, I'm not cutting it short. I'm just going to go for 3 no matter what. And I hit it. I hit 415 for 3, and it was definitely RPE 9, maybe even less, but I don't think I overshot it with the weight. Even my coach said I probably had 425 in me. So, I mean, deadlifts are starting to get back on track. Then after that, I had my heavy squat day, and I hit 355 pounds for 3. And last week I hit 345 pounds for 3. Both of those I had never hit for more than 1 rep previously. So each time I'm going for a PR, I'm just hitting it for 3, which is pretty crazy. I don't know, just it feels really good, just smashing your 1 rep max, or not even your max, but your highest 1 rep. So I felt pretty proud about that. And then I did a tempo single on bench of 230 pounds. That one moved pretty well. I kind of messed it up first try, so I redid it, and it moved great. And I definitely had some volume PRs throughout the week and just all these back offsets. Like I've never done this much work, so I'm really hoping it carries on to the next block, and just my work capacity is still really high. And I have one more day of training on this last week. I'm planning on doing a pause single on deadlifts around 405 pounds. Maybe I'll shoot it up to like 415, 425, depending on how I'm feeling. But that's supposed to be at RPE 9. So I kind of want to like full send and just go for something crazy since it's the end of the block. And I will be deloading next week. And like Ani was asking, the plan for the deload as of right now, I haven't gotten the actual like exact training for that week from my coach, but the plan is to do RPE 7 singles for the most part for my top sets. So I might even hit some PRs in there for a single, depending on how I'm feeling. Maybe like match some PRs as well. But honestly, matching PRs on a deload is always insane. Like that's how you know you're new to lifting, new to powerlifting, is when you're hitting some crazy numbers on your deload relative to what you've done before. So I'm pretty excited for that. Yeah, and then after the deload, it goes into the peaking phase, and it'll be 4 weeks of peaking and a week taper. And I might taper some of the volume in the peak phase, depending. Obviously, you never really know how the peak's gonna go when you've never done this before. I feel like it's very individualistic, like how you manage a peak. I don't know if like I feel like you can't just apply the same thing to everyone.
No, for sure.
Especially based on lifting experience. More experienced lifters definitely need to taper a lot earlier. So I'm hoping I can go pretty hard, really close to the meet, and have a very short taper.
Yeah, for tapering, I think it's not only lifter specific, but it's also lift specific. Yeah, and like it's so specific to the individual and their lifting. Like peaking is kind of like an art, and just like the way that you have to do it for people, and not only just individuals, like I said, but like individual lifts in with the individuals. No peak, like relatively speaking, should look the same. Like once you've like really unlocked it, like there are like general principles, obviously, but after you've done a few peaking cycles, like you should know, like, okay, if I gotta start hitting, there are like people who lift heavy literally into the meat, and then there are people who have to pull back intensity like 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, which is crazy to me. That you can, and like everything in between, and for different lifts, like some people can peak their bench right before the meet, and some people have to peak their bench way over here, and at the same time, having to peak their squat 2 weeks out, having to peak their deadlift a month out. The previous block is like it's an art form, and everybody
there's so many variables at play.
For sure.
I mean, that's lifting in general, with how you incorporate volume and intensity and everything, and what exercises you choose. But definitely with like with peaking and tapering, like you can do so many different things in terms of messing with your volume and intensity and what time periods and everything. So it's definitely something that you have to experiment with. And since this is our first meet, we don't know exactly how we're going to react. Like obviously I have some experience with like peaking in like little blocks I've done, and like testing right after that and seeing like how I perform, but I'm still so new. It's hard to say. Like I feel like bench I can peak pretty close up to the meet. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say exactly the same thing that you said. Like I've run programs that are designed to be very kind of cookie cutter, like templates that would peak you, like, in a very sort of generic way. But that's literally the only experience I've ever had with peaking. I've never done any sort of individualization. I've never done any sort of experimental just to see like what could work, like peaking the bench like a month out versus peaking it like a couple of days out or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So
I know my coach was saying like sometimes for like people he's trained, like it takes like up to, or just like even like just people, the experiences he's seen, it takes like people like 4 meets to really like dial it in on how they manage their volume and intensity and everything.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it changes over time. Like as you get more experience, you're gonna need more time to drop that volume. So like it's even something that's always changing. Like you can't just keep reusing the same formula every year, you know, or every
Yeah,
meet.
especially because the tonnages are always going up. Like you're gonna always be doing more work, like just like gradually, and like, you know, you might get a threshold where you can't get away with just kind of doing a generic thing because the loads that you're using are so significant relative to you that like you're just gonna burn yourself into the ground, and you're actually gonna, you know, not perform as well as you could have. I did want to bring it back really quickly because I just remembered something that you said, and I can't remember which episode it was or if you were talking about the squat or the deadlift, but I want to say that you said something like, I think it was the squat, where you said, I don't think I can add like 40 to 50 pounds over the course of the block, or something like 40 pounds over the course of the block seems like a big deal.
You're
and
right.
You just added 40 pounds over the course of the block. Bro, and you could have added 50, I believe it, because I know that you were talking about, hey, if I really wanted to take this, I probably could have done 365 if I really, really wanted to. But that would have been like an all-out max. So I don't want to hear no shit, bro. I told you, bro. God damn it, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy with how everything went this block. Like, I mean, everything I was hitting was kind of like what I had set out for myself as like, I'd be very happy with these weights. So I don't know. I'm super excited with how everything's going.
Unlike Dom, I'm actually, I guess you could say, starting a new block this week, which is going to be interesting because I'm only like, 2 weeks ahead of Dom in terms of the meet. So that means that I'm 7 weeks out, or 8 weeks out. I'm 58, so 8 weeks out. So I'm kind of concerned, honestly, just because 8 weeks is not a lot of time to prepare for a meet. Luckily, you know, I'm not like trying to break a record at this meet. So it's not like it's going to be super consequential, like it's going to be my first meet. So I guess it's okay. I would have definitely liked a much more longer timeline like Dom had, to be able to prepare for this meet. And even like, especially because the last 2 weeks now, because of this finger right here, I actually haven't done any squats or barbell squats rather, and any deadlifts. Yeah. So I'm hoping that today, at the time of this recording, is going to be the first day that we actually start getting back into doing like back squats for real.
Yeah,
because
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I know that my coach is going to have me do a ton of technique adjustments, because I know that he wants me to squat low bar, and like I know that you've told me that I squat high bar, and I don't think it's like high bar. It's like this really weird hybrid between high bar and low bar. Yeah. It's like, I call it mid bar, but it's not like, that's not really a thing, you know. But I know that he's gonna want me to put that bar down farther on my back. I know that we're probably gonna do a lot of stance adjustments and technique adjustments. So like I said, I hope that there's enough time here to build something going into this meet. And then the deadlift also, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of technique adjustments on the deadlift. And there was some technique adjustments on the bench. I mean, that's kind of the only thing that I was able to do. And I do have some footage this week of me doing some bench, but nothing really significant, unfortunately. I say that kind of meanly because I actually lifted more than Dom this week, technically.
I was pretty bummed about that.
Relatively speaking, nothing significant. So I did hit 232 pounds for a set of six, a couple sets of six. It's like a set of six at RP6. And with the new technique, I mean, okay, so there's actually a story that you didn't know. So I put 242 on the bar, and I did six with that, and I personally thought it moved just fine, but my coach was like, "No, you gotta take it off. It's too much for the new technique." and like add a 6. And I was like, okay, bro, if you say so. So I took off 10 pounds and put 232 on, and it was like, man, this is air. You know what I'm saying? I'm so sorry. But yeah, so 232 pounds for 6. It moved really, really simply, really, really smoothly. I made a lot of technique adjustments on my bench. Basically, I'm kind of doing something similar to what Dom was doing. So there's 3 main technique adjustments that I've made to my bench. One is, just like Dom, I'm really, really trying to like drive my traps really, really hard into the bench, just to make sure that I get that really nice, not only just retraction, but depression of the scapulas, and getting that really, really exaggerated arch just to cut that range of motion. The only difference between me and Dom is that Dom does this with his feet on the bench, and I am doing this without my feet on the bench. But the principle and probably the setup really is exactly the same. Yeah. So just really, really trying to drive that upper back into the bench. Technique adjustment number 2 is that I've actually widened my grip, which is something that I'm actually kind of concerned about the more that I think about it, just because I've experimented with a wider grip in the past, and I haven't really found that it was like necessarily more successful than a more moderate grip. But maybe, combined with all the adjustments, it'll be enough. But I just feel like I lose so much drive when my triceps are having to go so wide, and like,
Yeah,
it's just.
I agree. I've tried experimenting with wider grip. I even accidentally, so like at my other gym that I was working out at, I switched bars and didn't realize that the rings were very different, lengths.
It's the worst.
Yeah, so I'm like, I did a set of 2 at like 215, and I done like 205 or something the previous week. The 215 was way wider grip, and it felt terrible. I'm like, what changed? Like, I shouldn't be this hard. And I'm looking at the videos. I'm like, oh my God, my grip is so much wider. And I could just tell I'm just not as tight. Like, I feel like I can't just get as good, like, I don't know, like how like when you're like nice and close, you can kind of feel your lats and you can kind of get really tight in there. When you're wide, it's like you have no back like stability or something. I don't know how to describe it.
No, I definitely don't feel as tight when I think that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, if you think about the squat, right? How do you get your back tighter on the squat? You bring your grip in because the muscles can contract a little bit harder. It's the same. It's probably the same thing with the bench. I am also trying to cue my lats being tight. So now that, like, what I do is I kind of pull the bar like forward and down onto on the J hooks while it's still on the J hooks, just to try to get those lats really, really engaged. And then one of the things that I'm trying to really work on is the unrack. I just kind of want to pop it, like with the tricep. So like I'm here with the tricep, and all I want to do is kind of pop it off, which is something that I also trying to do with just my reps in general, because I tend to, and I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing, it's just not as efficient, but I tend to like protract a little bit when I finish reps.
I do too.
And I think like there's nothing necessarily wrong with that in my opinion, but my coach just really wants me to just focus on finishing with the triceps, which I think is probably good for range of motion as well. So I don't know, but second adjustment was the wider grip. Now instead of it's pretty decent adjustment because my ring finger was on the rings, and now my index finger is on the ring. So I moved 2 whole fingers over, and that has probably cut my ROM with the arch like very, very significantly.
Yeah.
And that's why I posted on Instagram that my bench is going to be a cheat code with these technique adjustments, just because if I can equalize my strength that I had before with these technique adjustments, because I feel like I was brute forcing a lot of my benches in the past. I don't think that 347 is out of the question. Maybe even 352. Damn. So
for the meet or for just like soon?
Well, 8 weeks is pretty short. I will give you that. But I think this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this year is possible. Or maybe like early next year. But yeah, I don't think it's out of the question. The question that then it'll determine like, okay, body weight. That'll be the determining factor for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then the last technique adjustment is really minor, but instead of just really, really biasing like internal rotation of the shoulders, I'm actually more biasing kind of more external rotation of the shoulders.
So he thinks you should externally rotate?
Yeah, he not necessarily like heavy external rotation like this, right? But like a lot of lifters, they'll bias a lot of internal rotation of the shoulders.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
and he says we should work on externally rotating the shoulders.
I'm always thinking about recently been bending the bar in like corkscrewing my shoulders. So like I'm very down and in, so it's very tucked.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that, I think he's saying the opposite almost.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, he doesn't want you to overtuck. He wants he thinks like, yeah, basically not necessarily the opposite, like the extreme opposite.
Yeah, but slight.
A decent amount of opposite. Like he does prefer benching with more of an internal rotation, and I do kind of wonder why, because I've also heard that exact same thing, that you need to external rotate, you need to bend the bar, and that helps engage the lats and the upper back a little bit more. But I've also heard that like there's a benching like every lift is not like a generalizable thing. Yeah. Basically, there's a lot of individuality for benchers, and I think people are like, they're really afraid of elbow flare. Like elbow flare is like really, really bad because you're just asking for a pec tear. Now, but I don't necessarily think that's 100% always an inevitable outcome, right? I think we can bench with a decent amount of elbow flare. It's just we're not as efficient in that position. Mm-hmm. But if you are more, there's like people who are efficient in that position as well.
Yeah.
So I will like pick his brain a little bit more and kind of come back to this subject. So I did have a second bench day. That was a tempo bench. I really hope that these carry over, because I actually got a really nice kind of pump, would you say, on a tempo, just that weighted stretch, very slow. It was actually kind of nice, but it was only about 200, and I did a set with 220 and then a set with 215. It was like a 4x5, 4 count descent, 1 count pause, and then just a regular press. At about an RP 5, so like really just light stuff, it like beginning of the block kind of stuff, which makes sense, I guess. And then this is another week where I didn't do any squats, I didn't do any deadlifts. I do have some RDLs filmed, and that was kind of, the RDLs were filmed a few days after getting the splint off 100% and like kind of letting it heal. And like this was kind of like the first time I put like significant weight in my hands. So it was only about 182 pounds, really, really light stuff, just for like sets of 10. And I was just kind of testing the durability of my finger. Like, is it ready to come back? And it held up surprisingly pretty well. Nice. I did use chalk, but it was beltless. And I didn't use straps, obviously. I didn't want to go too heavy. So I think it's ready to go. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, dude, normal training. I'm ready to go back to normal training, ready to go back to powerlifting, squatting and deadlifting all the time. I will run through kind of my training week right now as it looks, and this is obviously going to be adjustable over time. Hopefully, cross my fingers that I'm actually going to be able to adjust this over time. But right now, we're actually kind of taking a bit of a downgrade in terms of frequency of the lifts. So I squat and I bench twice per week right now, and I only deadlift once per week versus the 3 and then the 2 times respectively that I was doing before I got hurt. And there are 2 squat days. One is more of a volume day. That's probably going to be on a variation. Right now I've been doing belt squats as that variation. but maybe it'll turn into more of a barbell style variation, like maybe high bar, maybe pause squats or something. Moving forward, now that I'm actually going to put bars on my back. But and then the other first day is obviously more of an intensity based day. I was doing safety squat bar before. That's my primary squat. So again, we're going to see how it goes this week. I get less reps and a higher RP, so we're going to see what happens as I finally put some fucking bar weight on my back for real. And then the bench days are set up kind of identical. A primary day where it's regular bench, and then a secondary day where it's a main variation, and then just one deadlift day. So I'm not too sure how that day is going to be structured moving forward now that I can grip stuff. Maybe there'll be a second deadlift day. Maybe, it'll just be a ton of work on that day. Basically, everything is kind of separated into kind of what I would call a body part split. Versus before I was training full body all the time. Now it's more of a body part split where it's the primary movement and like accessories that are pretty much like dedicated specifically to that movement. So for instance, like on my primary squat day, or on any squat day actually, bunch of quad stuff. Like bulks, extensions, belt squats. There was actually some hamstring curls thrown in there as well, maybe just to get a little bit more of a hamstring involvement, but like that's it. And then bench day, we're looking at chest and triceps, bro. I got all kinds of presses. I had incline presses and flat presses in the same workout, tons of tricep movements, some lots of extensions, and then for deadlift day, it was a bunch of back stuff. I had pull downs, I had rows, I had face pulls, all that stuff, some abs thrown in there. And then, very similar, like all the other 2 days, which were squat and bench days. So that's how my week's kind of set up right now. I'm hoping that if it continues to be set up this way, that it doesn't like the recovery is okay. The reason I really like full body training is because everything kind of recovers at once. And also the way that you can distribute the volume throughout the week is very, very, it's unique in the sense that you can kind of put things places that you wouldn't like normally put them, but still have them not affect any of the primary lifts on any other day. Like if I was doing squats and bench on one day and then threw in some hamstring curls, the hamstring curls, like, yes, it is a hamstring movement, but how much recovery is my hamstring gonna take? How hard is it gonna hit the hamstring? Like, what's the recovery cost of doing a hamstring curl versus doing like a stiff leg deadlift? You know what I'm saying? Or like a GHR. And like you can kind of organize that in like a very unique way that I really, really liked. So moving forward, we're gonna see how this plays out. It kind of feels like I'm doing a bodybuilding style routine. Just because I'm doing like 4 sets of every one of my accessory movements for like double digit reps. And like the pumps I'm getting are actually kind of cool. I'm like, damn, I'm getting a pump again. And like, dude, we're kind of gonna get yucky. If only I could cut some goddamn weight off, then maybe we actually would get yucky. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay, guys, that wraps up another episode of Road to the Meet. We are 43 days out, and you are how many days out again, honey?
58.
Nice. So we're getting close. Stuff's getting real serious right about now. So if you guys want to follow along for the journey, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can follow us on our other social media. Ani's Instagram will be shown on the screen, and my TikTok will be shown on the screen. So make sure to follow us there. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Oh, and just subscribe to Dom as well. His link will be in the description.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Peace.